Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I've got a tackle hack for you that you're going to want to pay attention to because it will help you catch a few additional fish. Before I get into that though, I want to remind you that I've started up a second YouTube channel with a bunch of other anglers, and we're going to provide detailed regional specific information for you. It's called Bass Fishing Declassified. It would be awesome if you could subscribe to that channel. I will put the link in the video description for you. And also, if you want more content from me, guys, you can check out my members only page. I provide additional videos on a monthly basis. We've got a monthly live stream. You can have direct access to me. So check out my members only stuff. And it's for tips like this that I hope you keep coming back to the channel, because this is one that has been around for a long time. And I know a lot of people out there are doing it, but there's still a lot of anglers out there that I think are going to want to pay attention to this. So I came aware of this years ago because of this guy right here. This is the Man's Floating Jelly Tube. The whole idea behind this was you'd get a pack of tubes, and it came with some styrofoam cylinders that you slide up the tube. And then what that would do is allow you to fish a floating tube behind a Carolina rig. The styrofoam fit perfectly in the tube. The issue with this, in my opinion, and the reason this didn't stick around, and there's no date on here, but I'm going to say this is probably 25 years old. It was out for a few years. It just didn't stick. First off, the tubes are huge. The tubes are the length of the package, so they're 6-inch size tubes. So they're just too big. Also, the styrofoam made them float to the point where it was almost ridiculous on a Carolina rig, in my opinion. Plus, one, I'm not a huge fan of putting styrofoam in the lakes, and they came out quite a bit. So it just did not work well. The idea is super good. Like, I truly thought it was awesome. I used it quite a bit. I just couldn't get it to work the way that I wanted it to. This on the back even says that you could buy it in a 95-piece kit where it came with the hooks, different size tubes, and they're not the right tubes. Like, I'm very picky when it comes to tubes, and the idea was great. I couldn't get it to work. And there's a lot of guys out there that enjoyed this concept to the point where there's a lot of people to this day that are still using styrofoam to float their tubes. But one thing that a lot of people continue to mention to me, and something that I've been doing forever as well, is to not use styrofoam to float the tubes. What I use instead are earplugs. These are those foam expanding earplugs that you'd use if you were using a chainsaw or cutting the lawn, whatever it is. There's a couple of really good qualities to these. One, you can see it's going back to its original shape here, but you can squeeze them down, you can get them to fit various shapes. So that's one. Two, they're very buoyant. And three, you can hook these and they won't come off your hook, so you're not losing them. So I want to show you what I do with them specifically. A couple of things. Another great feature of using a styrofoam, or it's not styrofoam, but one of these earplugs, is that they fit almost all tubes. That's one issue with the styrofoam. Styrofoam you can't get it to bend. It's not malleable. So therefore, it's either fits or it does not fit. You can get these to fit almost any tube that's out there, whether it's the Maxcent power tube or the cream tube worm, which is much narrower. You can cut these down to the point where they will expand and tighten up in the tube itself, but they won't be overpowering. So here's an example. This is what I'm going to show you. So in this case, this is one of my favorite tube heads. This is just the Bite Me rattling tube head. You can hear it's got a rattle in it. So if I want this bait, and this is for a tube jig. This isn't even a Carolina rig. This works great for a Carolina rig, but I'm going to talk about a normal tube. When I take this bait, I could not put a piece of styrofoam in the tube with the hook. So you slide the tube up. If I slid a piece of styrofoam up there, it would either crack or it wouldn't fit right, and therefore it just doesn't work. With the earplugs, what I can do is I'll cut this down. So I can cut this down because I don't want the whole thing in there in this case. You can use as much as you want, but I know for me, This is a 3/16 ounce head, so if I went with a full earplug, I would have an extremely slow rate. So what you can do is cut it down. Like I said, you can cut them in half if you want. If you want to cut it this way in half to fit it in one of your cream tube worms, you can go ahead and do that. So once you have your half, you can take it and you can slide it right up, get it through. I mean, they do not go on easy. That's one of the things that's so great about it. They do not puncture and go through, but they will stay on your hook just fine. Getting it through. Okay, so I've got it through right now. And then at this point, because again, it's malleable, or it squishes down and it does not puff right back up, I can squeeze it down and then get it to slide up the hook shank. So I've got it just like that. And it looks like the shape's all distorted. That's all going to come back. I'm not worried about that right now. In fact, I'm going to squeeze it down more so that I can take my tube and slide it up my tube easier. So right now it's expanding. It's not fitting great. I'm going to squeeze it down to get it to fit up my tube. I don't want to catch any of my tube tentacles. Oh, I dropped my tube. So I'm going to slide it up in there. Okay, so now the awesome part about this is I've got my tube, pinch the nose through. So you can see it's a little bulbous. Again, I can trim that off once it's on here to get it to fit if I don't want that. A lot of times I like to have a little unusual shape in it because it does add some different motion on the fall, but it's expanded up to about as big as it's going to be. This is the key though, as to why I love doing this on a tube. When this bait falls, without that foam, a lot of times it'll sit on the bottom like that if you let your line go slack. With the foam, it will sit up like that. So it sits up in a defensive stance of a crawdad, and then at the same time, when a fish goes to suck it in, the hook is going to be the first thing that goes in the fish's mouth. And it's just a great way of giving your baits a more natural presentation in the water. You can slow the fall up if you want. You can take it out and speed the fall up, but it's something that just gives the tube a little something extra. It's been catching me fish for a long time. And like I said, one of the best things about this over the old styrofoam trick is these don't come off. That thing is on your hook, good to go. You can catch 50 fish and that earplug will not come off the hook. And like I said, if you're fishing a Carolina rig, you can do the same thing. You can rig it up. You can slide the earplug right up in there to get the bait to float. You can still rig it Texas style, but because these expand into the worm, they're not going to come out when you're fishing the Carolina rig. So guys, give this a try. This all goes back to the old man's floating jelly tube, which was a great concept. They just didn't have it nailed in. I think you can do much better off by taking some of those expanding foam earplugs. They work great. They float great. They fill the bait. They stay on. They give your bait a better presentation. And you can buy like 100 of them for like $2. So they last forever. Anyways, guys, this is something that I've been doing that catches me a ton of smallmouth up here in the North Country. I think you can use it to your advantage as well. Give it a try. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned. We'll have a new one coming out tomorrow.